Yeah, it certainly was a talking point amongst the fans, definitely, with what happened there. A lot of people piling on Josh Brooks, maybe, I'm going to say unfairly so, just because it was an incident, and in racing, incidents do definitely happen. But if you've got any readable opinions that we can read out, then pop them in the comments box, and we will endeavour to do that and read them out. Keep it nice and clean. So yeah, lots of stuff happening in the past couple of days, in the past couple of weeks. What else, Tristan? What other big bits of chunky news have we got?
Well, a good bit of news for any Bradbury fans is that Bradbury will be returning at Brands Hatch after that nasty little incident that he had. He managed to get a nasty old injury there from it, and he didn't even crash. What had happened was the chain had come off. It wrapped itself around his leg, tore through the leather and into his thigh muscle. He ended up having 8 stitches for that. He was out of action for 8 days. And he's going to be, he will be back out for Brands, according to his social media anyway.
I did see a picture of it. You may have seen it, a picture where he posted it on his social media. I'm not going to show it because it is a bit gruesome, but yeah, it is. It's really weird for that to even be a thing. When someone told me exactly what had happened, I didn't believe them because I'd never heard of that, certainly at that level, but it sounds just like a freak incident.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, normally you'd expect if the chain comes off, it sort of hang low or wrap itself around the wheel or something like that. You wouldn't think it would, come up and tear through someone's leathers. It was a nasty incident.
Blimey. So what else in the main news have we got?
Well, we've got a lot coming up. Obviously, it's going to be Brands Hatch this weekend, the final weekend of the year for BSB. So that's going to be it's going to be an interesting one. There's 5 riders that can win the championship. Obviously, you've got Brooks, who's topping it, and Glenn Owen can still win it on that Honda, and so can the 2 Yamahas, O'Halloran and Taron McKenzie. They're both still in the mix, so it could be any of the top 5, and it's very close between all of them.
Definitely is, and we're asking for your predictions as well. Maybe not yours, Tristan. Oh, you can give them if you want, or I will definitely ask Jay for his opinion, because he did tell me earlier in the week. So we might as well just, he's kind of hiding there. But yeah, your predictions if you are tuned in, listening live to the Superbike show. It's Motorsport Radio, and we are we're kind of doing this. This is another new host, Tristan and Jay, here doing this, and we're just having a chat, really. That's all this is. And we're live as well. Just thought I'd point that out. So I will get to some of the comments shortly. I've just been sorting the stream out and just calming down a lot, because first live show that I've done in 9 months. So it's interesting. Although I have done loads of live streams, it's just, anyway, so just before we move on to talk about some of the BSB support categories and other things in there, talking about BSB specifically, for the first time ever on Motorsport Radio this weekend, we will have official live radio coverage of the final round of a Bennett's British Superbike Championship event, live from Brands Hatch. It is the legendary Fred Clark and Larry Carter on commentary. It's the team that you already know and love and listen to on TSL, and we will have official live commentary live on Motorsport Radio all weekend, as long as the stream stays on. We can't control that. We don't stream that. We just literally take the feed from that. So I know there's been a bit of, because I've been trying to listen myself, the stream's been kind of up and down a little bit this year. But when it is up, it will be live on Motorsport Radio. And you can tune into that. The reason I mention that is because not every race this weekend will be live. Some of the support categories going to be on the, I think, Eurosport Player, or Eurosport.com, as they're going to be rebranding it soon, I think. Maybe you can ask Greg Haines about that. Interesting one. So if you do, maybe if you're out and about, maybe driving, shopping, being dragged around, and you want to find out what's happening in BSB, who's winning, who's losing, who's crashed, who's done a sensational job in a race, then tune into motorsport.radio. Can you listen on a mobile, Tristan?
You can listen on anything if you want.
Yes. Can I listen on a pineapple?
I mean, if you're clever enough to make that work, I guess so, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, don't know what I'm talking about. This is the Superbike Show. It is Motorsport Radio. We're doing this. It is live. My name is Lester. Tristan Finocchiaro is here, and also Jamie King, who will be talking about and taking your questions on pit bikes later. Why pit bikes, J. King?
It's the cheapest sport to do, really, and that's all I can afford to do. I tried big bike racing and I wasn't very good at it, so yeah, I still enjoy racing, so I carried on doing this.
Well, for those who are considerate, for those who do already go racing in pit bike championships wherever in the UK or further afield, Jay has a presence on YouTube, a channel on there called Pit Bike Sonic. And you dropped a video earlier today. We'll get to talking about that a bit later, but it's an interesting video. We'll get into the details of that later. But Jay King answering all your pit bike questions, as he is a double pit bike champion in fab racing this year. But now we will get on to talking about some of the BSB support categories, which is also well worthy and pretty much, there's a lot of things in the balance this weekend, Tristan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing, when you think of BSB supports is the Super Sport class, and that's been... We have to give a shout out to Rory. Rory Skinner this year, he's been such a standout. I mean, he's been quick all through his career, but this year has absolutely been something special. I mean, he is now the 2020 British Supersport champion with 2 races to go still at Brands Hatch. He dominated all year, like I've said. I mean, he's finished 9 out of 10 races. Out of all the ones that he's finished, he's won every single one apart from one, where he's got second place, and that is some incredible consistency, and that's exactly how to win a championship. I mean, Jay knows all about it. He's won 2, and it's extremely impressive to see just how consistently he's been finishing this year, and it's going to be interesting to see what he goes on to do next. He's even beat some of Kennedy's records as well from last year.
Definitely is, yeah, and he's got 2 races this weekend. Is he? I should have the timetable in front of me. That's how well prepared I am. But yeah, like you say, he's already won the championship, and was it Brad Jones who finished ahead of him once, and that was the only time he's been. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Which was a good race, that one. I remember watching that vaguely. But yeah, certainly, definitely a great achievement by Rory Skinner. Big question for him. Everyone's always asking, seemingly, where is Rory Skinner going to go next year? So, Tristan, do we know? Is he confirmed anything? I'm not big on my Rory Skinner news. If he has already said what he's doing, but what is he doing, if anything?
There hasn't been any news as of yet, but like I mean, even last year, his deal came out sort of out of nowhere. No one really knew about it until he announced it. Personally, I can't. I mean, I think he's got choices. I mean, he could move up to the Superbike class. He could move over to Moto 2. But I mean, all those things they all require funding. They all require the right sponsors behind it. You'd like to think, considering how quick he's been this year, that he will be able to move up over into something else. But it's definitely a possibility. I think that he actually stays in the class for another year. I mean, personally, I think he should move on. But the way it is at the moment, obviously with everything being so difficult, getting the right funding to do the right things, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him again in Supersport next year, because there's nowhere else to go at the moment. I mean, he could move across to Moto 2. That's what I'd like to see. I think he'd go well there. I mean, he's had experience over in World Championship tracks before. He's done the Junior World Championship. He's done Red Bull Rookies. So if he can go over and do Moto2, that would be a brilliant thing for British Championship, for British racing, to see a name like that over there. Obviously, we've got Jake Dixon over there, who's now doing well there. So if we can get more Brits over there, that would be brilliant to see. But personally, I think he's either going to end up moving up to the Superbike class, which, I mean, he's still very young, so he's got plenty of time to do that, or he may very well stay another year, and that'll be terrible for anyone who's racing in there next year.
We will have to just wait and see on that one, I suppose. Another champion, Junior Supersport in 2020, Owen Jenner.
Yeah, that was a very close fought battle in Junior Supersport. So a shout out to Owen Jenner, who won that for the Affinity Sports Academy. And the interesting thing about that, after all the battling, obviously they had their last round at Donington, so they don't do Brands Hatch. And now, so what his team have done, because of course the Affinity Sports Academy, which was originally part of the Massingbird Mundy Team Green program, that's a team owned by Leon Haslam. He's now going to be moving up into the Superstock 600 class with the same team. So that team, as a prize, have allowed him up into Superstock 600. And I believe he was out testing the bike at the weekend at some with No Limits. So it'll be interesting to see, and that's some brilliant news for him. So he's been able to get that up and move up into the Stop 600 class after winning that, and that shows a lot of riders that there's some incentive as well to go past once if they win these things for teams like Affinity Sports Academy. There's prizes to be won, and they can move up in the ranks and progress with their careers. So yeah, Owen Jenner will be moving to Superstock 600 at Brands Hatch.
Definitely good to see all these young prospects for the future, where they might be going, what they might be doing, etc. Owen Jenner joining Rory Skinner as one of the early champions in 2020. Next, Jay, I suppose it's only right that me and you talk about the Superstock 600 class, just because we don't want any allegations of favouritism. Superstock 600 is the class, if you don't know, what Tristan Finocchiaro races in, and he also explicitly said that he doesn't want to talk rubbish about some of his riders. I mean, he'll happily do that off air. Wow, you should hear him.
Chose the class I know the least amount.
But anyway, Ben Luxton ahead with a couple of races left to go. And he has been the power force in Stock 600 this year. Well, he should be. He's been in it for how many years now? Well,
7, I believe.
7 years.
I think so.
My brother used to race in Stock 600s, and I think he was in it when my brother was in it, and
wow.
That was 6 years ago, I believe.
Okay,
I might be wrong.
Okay, I'll take you guys' words for it. But Ben Luxton currently quite far ahead with a couple of races left to go. Only a catastrophe, one would say, would have to happen for him to not win it. So I don't want to jinx it. Ben just lives down the road from me in Stockport. Rhys Irwin looking good in his class, picking up a couple of wins. And Zach Cordroy and Rhys both equal on points at the moment. And did you just mention that Zach had moved to the Affinity Sports Academy, or was that the other guy?
Yeah, no, Zach's moving up.
Okay.
That's something that recently came out after Taylor Morton. He's injured with something, so Zach's going to be stepping into that team.
Okay, and also hot prospects for the future, Mr. Finocchiaro riding this weekend. It would be foolish of me to not even ask you about your chances this weekend, and don't tell us it's going to be a learning weekend.
Well, it's always a learning weekend. There's always something to learn. But no, I'll be doing riding this weekend, and it's just going to be, about just about finishing off a good season, finishing off a bit of learning, and getting strong for next year, and getting that time under my belt ready for next year.
Well, we will get on to talking about the Stock 1000 category shortly. We definitely will do that. But first, we, as it is 8:30, we did say to our first guest, who happily joins us now, all totally well branded. You may already probably know him. If you don't, then, well, you're probably not really going to like listening to stuff like radio, motorsport radio, or even listening to podcasts either, because joining us right now on Motorsport Radio, I think for the first time ever on the Superbike show, I believe, I don't know, it is. Please welcome Chrissy Rouse. Hello.
Hi everyone.
How are you, Chrissy?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. Is the connection okay?
I think so. I can see you and we can hear you, and we can see that you're sponsored by Colchester Kawasaki. So yeah, I think we're good. Good to go. Welcome anyway to the Superbike show, and yeah, well, we've got loads of stuff to ask you, and well, shall we get started? Tristan, you can start off with firing off the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Chrissy. Just to start us off. Obviously, it's been a good season so far for you. So just talk us through how the season's gone so far for you.
Yeah, really good, mate. So at the beginning of the season, I was due to be riding for MSS Kawasaki, and we went out testing to Cartagena in March. And unfortunately, I had a little crash. It was one of the smallest crashes I've ever had, but it actually turned into one of the worst injuries I've ever had. And so the season actually started off really badly with having to have a massive operation on my shoulder in March. Then, as I was lying in hospital bed, and I'd rang my team to say like I wasn't going to be able to make at least the first few months of this season. The whole COVID thing was sort of kicking off, and it kind of the season was cancelled, and then from when the season did get going, my team that I was riding for actually pulled out, and got a deal sorted with Crow Performance to race at BMW, and we did a little bit of pre-season testing, a few club races, and a few like the BSB tests and stuff, and it's been a fabulous season. Obviously one race to go, but out of the 9 races so far, we've had quite a few podiums and some really enjoyable races, and I've got a great little team around us, and yeah, I know it's been like a condensed calendar and it's been a bit different to other years, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it so far.
That's awesome to hear, and that's obviously exactly what you want. Going back to obviously the situation with MSS and how they pulled out for this year, and then you landed with Crow. Was there any point that you thought that you didn't have a ride, or was there much of a time gap between dropping MSS and moving to Crow Performance?
Yeah, it was a good few weeks. It was quite exciting because I was the teams had riders, and yeah, I was all friends and different options, and that was either to take the financial risk of financing it myself and having a go and trying to challenge for the championship, or option B was maybe a little bit safe, and that was maybe to just hold fire and see how things panned out. And obviously there's always injuries, there's always spaces in teams that develop after the first round or so, and I could have kind of been on the fence and kind of waited for an opportunity. And I spoke obviously quite honestly with like my family and people who are close to us, and I kind of made the decision to go for it myself. And although it was a big risk financially, it's at the end of the day, I'm a motorbike racer, and I want to be competing for championships. And I thought I had a fabulous opportunity with Crow Performance. I know how good the bike is. I know how good the team is, And so yeah, I decided to go for it. Spoke to all my personal sponsors, and I was very lucky to all my sponsors had stayed on board and helped us out. Very lucky, and I'm pleased. I'm pleased. Obviously, you can looking back on it, I'm really pleased that with the decision that I made.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, going from one to the other, just talk us through what it's like going from, say, a ride with MSS, which I'm assuming was a free ride, to something that you're completely funding yourself. What's the main difference between them?
Obviously, the burden of sorting things is totally different. It comes from the burden is on the team to get things organised and to finance things, and that totally is not totally, but a lot of it is then rests on my shoulders. But saying that, there's so much that goes into running the bike, and I don't think people actually appreciate how much goes into it in terms of Phil at Crow Performance, the man hours that requires to get everything organised, to make sure in terms of stock, and to even just to physically get the bike up to spec. It's so much time and effort, and I'm incredibly grateful because they were already set to be running Matt True Love, and Phil was also going to be doing a bit of racing himself, so taking me on was a massive plus. And I'm obviously well happy that they decided to do it, and very grateful for that.
And in terms of moving from, because obviously, I mean, you did all your testing on the Kawasaki, and then moved to the BMW. What was it like having to quickly learn from one bike to the other?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, 1,000cc is 1,000cc, and it's I didn't actually do that much testing. We did a couple of days in Cartagena in March, and then after the whole COVID situation was sort of clearing up, and the lockdown was clearing up, should I say, I managed to get out for quite a few track days on the BMW. The BM took a little bit of getting used to in terms of the electronics, and we just sort of guessed the starting point, and it definitely took us a few track days to get used to. It actually took us a while to be able to break traction on the bike, just with the way the electronics work. It took a bit of getting a bit of understanding before I had the confidence to then start pushing. But once I kind of learned how the electronics work, we don't have a suspension technician or an expert in the team that's reading the data and things. We're a bit more traditional in terms of got a good setup, and we don't really vary away from it much.
All right. Well, obviously, going back to the season itself. I mean, you're leading the championship, but it's a very slim lead at the moment. What's your mindset going into the final round? Are you completely looking at where Tom's finishing, or is it just all about trying to go out and pick up 25 points?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, going into the last round of the championship, I've got a 10-point lead, which is it's more than a kind of a few rounds ago. If you'd said you're going to go into the last round with a 10-point lead, I would have snapped your hand off. In terms of my mindset, a lot of it sort of depends on how free practice and qualifying goes, and I'll then, before the race, I'll kind of come up with a plan with my coach Alan Carter. I kind of think of one thing at a time, and at the moment I'm focusing on getting my bike set up right in free practice, and then once that's ticked, we'll then go qualifying and sort of adjust our expectations, and then we'll come up with a plan for the race. But obviously the overall goal is to obviously win the championship, But in all honesty, I feel like I'm really proud of like my little team and everyone involved, and we've had a fabulous season so far. Really enjoyed it, and I'm kind of in the mindset of we've got a fantastic opportunity to do well this year. Obviously, I'm either going to be first or second. Those are the two options, and I'm kind of just going to go out, enjoy myself, do the best I possibly can, and if things go well and I manage to win the championship, then there'll be a huge bonus on what's been a fantastic season.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're actually out there on track, are you thinking about the championship at all, or is it just about what you need to do at that specific time?
I mean, if you take Donington, the last round I was very aware that I was protecting a lead, and so yes, it's always in the back of my mind the fact that the main goal is to score good points, where earlier in the season it was maybe just more about maybe less about the championship and more about the race. And as the season's progressed, when there's only a few races to go, obviously it's all sort of minimising risk, getting the most points you can without taking any risks. So the championship's always in the back of your head, but I think it's important to just focus on one thing at a time. And during the race, my goal will be corner by corner, lap by lap.
Yeah, of course. No, that makes sense. Do you, in terms of Brands itself, do you like Brands as a circuit? Is it a circuit you've gone well at before?
Yeah, I love the Grand Prix circuit. I'm not so much a fan of the Indy circuit. It's a bit of a Mickey Mouse track for superbikes, but the GP track, I would say, is probably either the best or one of the best tracks in the UK. It got a little bit of everything. It's a big shame that there's no spectators there because it's fast. And in the past I've done pretty well. Had quite a few podiums, and last year I actually got collected in somebody else's accident on the first lap. So I had to stop from pit lane last year, and I think I finished something like 11th at the pace to like challenge for the win in that race. So I think it's been a reasonably good track for us, and I'm really looking forward to getting there it'll be the first time on the Gent B4.
Yeah, we'll wish you the best of luck with that one. So what's your thoughts for the future at the moment then? Anything planned moving up to the Superbike class?
Nothing planned at the moment in terms of solid plans, but I would obviously like to get into British Superbikes, with it being the like main class. So yeah, it's just a case of, at the moment I'm focused on this weekend and getting the job done, best job I can. But yeah, we're obviously with a view to opening up doors for next year.
Yeah, in a season like this, when the talks start happening, will it be sort of after the last round? I presume so. Usually at BSB, around the sort of showdown time, beginning of the showdown, people are getting plans for next year sorted, where this year's been a little bit different, but I'm sure people will be getting rides sorted now. But for me personally, I've got nothing sorted at the moment, and I'll be, after this weekend, I'll be on the phone trying to get a ride sorted. That's perfect. Well, we wish you the very best of luck with that one, and thanks a lot for speaking to us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much for having us on.
Awesome. It's been brilliant.
Cheers, Chrissy, and good luck this weekend. It is the Superbike Show, Motorsport Radio, and we are live. And just about, internet all being well, and touch and go at the minute. But as we are live, I suppose I will get to read out some people's comments just to prove that we are definitely live. This is from way earlier in the show. Hello to Neil Banham, who, talking about people's hair earlier, says that actually, Lester, I have ash blonde. I don't know. Maybe not.
I guess that's what we could say. Oh, you're ash blonde.
I mean, there's, I don't know. It's like trying to find another word for saying, you're not fat, you're just plump. No, definitely going grey, old and fat. There we go. Liam Hodgins has been on. Don't know. No idea. Don't know who that is. He says, great to see the Superbike Show back. Okay. He says, thank you very much, Liam. And he is tuned in. He should be back doing some Dorna stuff. So, yeah. And also, we are also on the BSB fans group, BSB and Support Classes fans group on Facebook. We should probably find a better name for that thing anyway. Hello to Ryan Lilly, previously of the Superbike Show and Motorsport Radio. Hello. He sends a wave. Hello to George Butler. He says, referring to Chrissy Rouse, it was great to see him up there this year. He also says or asks, how has Tristan found a real question, Tristan. Here we go. How has Tristan found adopting to the 600s in comparison to the previous championship that you were in, which was full of kids, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's completely different. Moving up from the 300s to the 600s, the way I've described it is it's almost like a different sport. I mean, you move up to a bike that's a lot heavier, a lot more powerful, and the races are a bit longer as well. And with the riding itself being more physical and the races being longer, it's a very different style of racing as well. So it's been a lot to learn. And I mean, right at the beginning, I was definitely riding it like a 300, and it felt like that was the limit, and then there was seconds and seconds to knock off, and then I just had to sort of think about how to ride this bike in particular, and just focusing on that. And that's what I'm still doing now. I'm still in that process of just figuring out how to work this bike to make it work at the best of its ability. So I mean, now I've sort of know which direction I need to be going in. It's just it's all about seat time. Yeah, forward normally helps.
Yeah, that was a very the sort of answer that a media trained someone who's qualified as a professional journalist like Tristan has. At least I've got a pink cup. My pink cup is pinker than your pink hair. So.
Oh, it's red now. It's not pink.
Red. Well, whatever. So does that answer your question, George? If not, then ask another one. And you can also get questions in for our other champion here, Jay King, who's a double champion in the Pit Bike 140 class in Fab Racing, which is the official partner series to the Bennett's British Superbike Championship, and it's on the road to MotoGP. And Jay, you are... well... You never know. I mean, Tristan featured on the MotoGP website this year, sort of, kind of. He had one of his articles published. Well, a few, actually. A few race reports. So, don't let it be said that you'll never get to MotoGP, because one day, well, you don't know. I don't know. It's literally what...
We're past it now, Lester.
I don't know. That's what Liam said last year, and now he's working there. So, yeah, he's like, oh, okay, it never happened to me. I'm too old and all that. And now he's like living it up in Barcelona and stuff, going, Lester's still here doing that old show, kicking around, doing the old same stuff. It's like, I suppose it's like when you leave school and then you move town and then you come back years later and the same old faces doing the same old stuff. But we enjoy it. I don't, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. Anyway, so get your questions into Jay King, who is got the blue hair today. Are we calling it blue or green? Blue.
We're going to go blue. If it starts to go green, more blue goes in.
Exactly. Not like Marge Simpson, but he is, as you may know, if you've been listening to his, watching any of his YouTube fanatics, he is the Pitbike Sonic. And just explain exactly Why that is?
It was because of high school, really. I used to have a lot more spikier hair than it is now, and basically I just got the nickname Sonic. So it's not an interesting story in the all, but yeah, I got the nickname Sonic when I was at school, and it's just stuck ever since, really. So that's just the little tag name I thought I'd call myself on my YouTube channel.
Why not? Makes you stand out at least, one thinks. And talking a bit about, I know we're going slightly off topic, kind of. Are we? I don't know. I'm bringing things ahead. We had like a running order and a schedule, and
let's mess it up.
I've messed it up already. It took Tristan weeks to put that together. Sorry. But I suppose since we're talking about it now, and I've got the music playing anyway, your YouTube channel, which is Pitbike Sonic, I think, on YouTube.
Yeah.
And you released a video just today, hours ago, explaining why you race in Fab Racing as opposed to another championship. Why is that? Just give us a couple of little bullet points.
I always get asked because there's no disrespect to BMB or anyone who runs the championship. I know Alan, he does a great job, but a lot of people ask me always why I race in Fab, and it's just I raced with Fab when I was a kid. My brother came through it on Metra kits and things like that, so I've got a strong relationship with Roger and Rob. And I raced at Fab just because I enjoy the weekends of racing, really. And I found when I was racing at B&B, what they do is, I can see why they do it, because they try and make it for a single day rider, really, where you can just turn up in the morning and go home in the evening. But I really like the social side of a whole weekends of racing, where you're qualifying on the Saturday and racing on the Sunday, kind of like how a BSB meeting is structured.
Interesting. Okay. There's a lot to be said for people. I mean, both championships are very popular, especially for pit bikes, but a lot of people are the opinion that next year, especially if you have a pit bike, they might try their hand in Fab Racing, which might have traditionally been a place that you could only really go to the other championship, BMB.
Yeah, the Fab grids have picked up a lot, and Tristan will tell you, he would have noticed the last few rounds that the pit bike grids have got so big now that we've had to split from the moto teams, and the moto teams are going to get a lot bigger next year because they've now got another championship, which I'm currently racing in at the moment as well, which is an endurance championship.
Yeah, the new endurance, what's the name of that? Just remind me again.
The Free Tech Championship, run by former BSB rider Hudson Kenner.
Hudson Kenner, legend. I remember him a couple of years ago always dropping by in the Clandau rounds of Fab.
Yes.
And that was interesting.
It's a real good fun championship. It's good to... I've never done endurance racing before, and it is real good fun being in a team. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I'll be doing more of them as long as people give me a bike to ride, really. Maybe
they should live stream it.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Get on it, Lester.
I'll have a word. Hi, Hudson. So anyway, it's Jay King here all evening with pit bike stuff, knowledge. If you have any questions for him, get on the old internet, add your comment to the comments box below, wherever you're listening or watching, on the BSB and support classes fans group, the BSB group on Facebook and on Motorsport Radio. And where else are we streaming? We're streaming on Twitch as well, something called D Live, whatever that is. We're live on D Live. Kids, I don't know. VK, hello. That's a Russian thing. That's why I did that. But there you go. Jay King telling us why he prefers Fab Racing over BMB, especially next season. Well, I suppose it does help that you also... I will be doing some B&B rounds next season. I was planning to do them this season. But you just went through a whole 5-minute rant about why you love...
but I want to see how I am compared to the others. So...
but when you realise that...
I have enough... Before you say I have nothing against the B&B Championship.
I never said you did.
For a long while.
You're the one pointing it out, anyway. But there's always a friendly rivalry, let's say.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, it's good to have competition because there's a lot of people who talk to me all over Europe who wishes they could have championships like we do. So I'd never wish on either championship to get axed or go away. So it's good to have 2 championships.
It definitely is, and
it's good for the youngsters as well, because obviously they've got a choice these days if they want to race 4-stroke ovales or they want to ride 2-stroke metric kits.
How are you pronouncing that? Because I've always called it ovales.
I call it ovales, but
Ovales.
There's different ways, really, isn't it?
Well, I suppose we could ask one person who'd know. Maybe. Get him on the phone. Peter Hickman. Anyway, so this is the Superbike Show. It is Motorsport Radio, and we are very much live. Hello and welcome. We didn't give this show too much pre-promotion beforehand. I'm not saying I don't have confidence in it, but I've just been a little rusty for the past 10 months, and yeah, it's like riding a bike again. You've got to kind of slowly ease your way back into it, haven't you? It's almost like being on a sidecar for the first time, Tristan.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine that, being on a sidecar for the first time?
I can imagine finding footage of you trying it terribly for the first time later.
I was definitely quite
stiff.
Tense, I think the word is. I'll go with tense. I think tense sounds better.
Fair enough. Either way, Tristan will not be appearing in any mini F1 sidecar races in the forthcoming future. The news is out about him. He is a bad passenger. Ooh. Yeah, everyone's talking about it. I'm only kidding. Anyway, we'll move on because quick reminder as well before we do that for the first time ever this weekend, Motorsport Radio will have official live radio coverage of the final round in BSB live right here. When you go onto motorsport.radio, either on your phone, on your tablet, in the car, in the wherever you are working or whatever, you don't just have to be at the laptop. But you can tune into Motorsport Radio and BSB Radio live all weekend, and you can check out Fred Clark and Larry Carter's commentary of the epic final races, including some of the epic support classes, and find out how Chrissy Rouse, amongst other people, get on in their championships. Did we ever actually talk about the stock thousands in the end? I don't think we did.
No. We talked about them very briefly.
We were talking about stock 600, and then Chrissy Rouse came, and then it was like, oh, and here's Chrissy Rouse. But I think we covered it kind of within his interview, sort of thing. But yeah, for those who don't know the situation in stock 1000, just quickly, Tristan.
Well, yeah, at the moment, Chrissy, who we had on earlier on in the show, he's leading that championship by 10 points, and it's been between him and Tom Neve. It is one of those two that are going to win it going into the final round. Of course, Tom Neve on that brand new Honda that's out there this year, and Chrissy, who's like you said earlier on, moved from Kawasaki at the beginning of the year over to BMW on that performance bike, has managed to still lead the championship despite everything that happened earlier on in the season. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out at the weekend, because of course they've got races coming up at Brands Hatch at the weekend, so that's going to be one to keep an eye on for sure.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And let us know your thoughts if you're tuned in, listening live. We want to know what your opinions are, if you have any at all. Why? Because, well, that's kind of the basis of the show, really. We ask people their opinions and stuff. Especially who's going to win. I'm going to get your predictions later on BSB, given that the situation there, but not just yet. I will do that later on. Big debate, by the way. BSB, is it better with or without the showdown? Prompted mostly because that we've had no showdown this year, and it's led people to believe that, we should drop the showdown completely. Well, it's perhaps, if it has worked without a showdown, maybe it's worked because it's only been six rounds, is it? Yeah. Whereas over 12 weekends, then, yeah, I mean, nobody really wants to go into a last round with nobody able to win anything. It's harder to sell tickets that way, put simply. So that is kind of the and it's done for entertainment, and generally speaking it does work, but your opinions please. BSB, better with or without the showdown? I might ask J King later. Julian Ryder says he hates the showdown on the recent Eurosport podcast. Interesting. BSB also, should it start later next season? Stuart Higgs and the MSVR team and MSV together all doing a sensational, superb job despite the conditions this year, in not knowing at many times up until very, very early, so late on, just before this actual start of the season, what the situation would be, and it's incredibly difficult to plan for a season when you have to be told by the government or by watching press releases and stuff and news conferences that your championship should or should not go ahead, when you have other championships who are welcoming in fans, etc., and to the same venues, and they seem just fine. But anyway, that's an interesting one. But basically, we're asking the question, should BSB start a little bit later next season to potentially avoid any more COVID nonsense? Let us know, yes or no on that one. You can have your say, or if, like us, you two are pretty much sick and tired of COVID and fed up with talking about it, then great. Still to come here on the Superbike show, shortly we will have Greg Haines on to talk about World Superbikes. What exactly will he be talking about? What we going to or maybe, if this is a good one, if you've got any questions for Greg Haines, get them in right now into the comments box below. I will try and remember to refresh my page and ask him on your behalf. So that should be good. Generally speaking, though, World Superbikes, where are we up to with that? I have to admit, haven't had my finger on the pulse of World Superbikes. Been a bit busy. But I've seen bits of stuff recently. And, Jonathan Ray, is he going to do it next time? Obviously. Probably. Yes. Probably.
I mean, you'd very much like to think so. I mean, he's very much in a good place in the championship, of course. I mean, Reading, and Chaz last time out with that first and third managed to make them take it to the next round. But I mean, you're going to have to think it's going to be Johnny that's going to take it. But they're going to Estoril next, which is a circuit we haven't seen any of these guys do before. So anything could happen. But you'd like to think it's going to go in the way of Johnny, despite all the efforts that Scott's putting in right at the end of the season.
Jay, have you been keeping up to track with World Superbikes this year?
Yeah, I've been watching quite a bit of it because I'm a bit of a Scott Redding fan, because obviously he came through Fab. So I've been quite impressed with how he's going this season. It's a bit of inconsistency the last few rounds, apart from when he got that win in France in the wet, which kind of kept it alive. But it's nice to see World Superbike Championship going down to the last round, because Johnny has managed to clinch it in the earlier rounds in the previous season. So it is nice it's a little bit tighter now.
Certainly, yeah. But let us know your thoughts if you are tuned in and listening live. We want to know exactly what you think. Can it be done, and how will it be done? Do you have any predictions for what will happen this weekend? Or is it this weekend? Definitely this weekend? Yeah, I'm losing track and losing calendar. I don't know. Where are we? What day are we on? What's my name? Anyway. At the next round of World Superbikes. I'll just play it safe and say that. So just having a quick check at the moment, see people tuned in, listening. If they've got any questions at all, quick refresh of the old... incidentally, by the way, you may have noticed that there has been some little clips already up online of bits of interviews during the show, which is rather clever, if I must say so. It's just a little thing that I've been working on, that's all. But anyway, since we were talking about World Superbikes, one man that should know certainly what he's talking about, because he's been commentating on it on World Superbikes for quite a long time, and he will continue to do so. It is the Eurosport commentator. It is Mr. Gregory Haines. Welcome to Motorsport Radio and on the Superbike Show once again, Greg.
Evening, guys. I like the fact you sort of give the impression that I know what I'm talking about. Thanks for giving me the benefit of the doubt there.
Well, we're guessing that you know slightly more than certainly what I do anyway, so I'm going to put you down as the expert on this one. So,
all right.
There you go.
Thanks very much.
So, generally then, how's your year been? I know it's obviously just like a lot of people's, stressful and, that. But I think you, did you have to didn't you get stuck in Spain or miss a round or something like that at the start of the season? But generally speaking, well, I'm glad that we managed to have some racing. But for you, how's it been?
Well, here's the confirmation. Look, 400-year-old Tudor cottage in Warwickshire. I've not been able to go home to Spain since the beginning of August, so I'm going back and forth from my mum and dad's house, which is where I am now, in the UK because of the quarantine. So I can't come in from Spain from anywhere because you'd have to have a 2-week quarantine depending on where you're going. So it's a mess. The season's been all right though, hasn't it? It's been a strange season. It's been very, very rushed. We had 5 months with no racing after Australia. And then all of a sudden I'm sort of putting notes together here and getting everything ready for Estoril, thinking the season's almost finished. And it doesn't feel long since it carried on in Jerez.
Yeah, like three months, I think, that we started pretty much. It's the both the longest and the shortest season in motorsport, I think. We're one man who was riding in World Superbike, at least in the paddock anyway, at one point. Is our presenter and now expert commentator. I think your job's on the line here, Greg. It is Tristan Finocchiaro, who has some questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Greg. How are we doing?
Hello, Tris. Can I ask you a question first? Why the pink hair? Because I'm sure viewers...
It's not pink anymore. It's red.
Oh, it's red now?
Yeah, it's red. I've changed it up since I last saw you, yeah.
All right, why the red hair there?
The red hair, well, I just fancied to change. Pink was stuck for a bit too long, so we had to spice it up a little bit.
I was going to go pink here, but I thought against it in the end, so I put in some grey platinum streaks for you.
Oh, you did that yourself?
Yeah, earlier on tonight.
Well, that's pretty impressive. But let's talk bikes, shall we?
Go on, let's go.
So first off, we've had some pretty exciting news today. Someone has signed for Ducati.
Yes, he has. Michael Ruben Rinaldi. We've been wondering, haven't we? Because I remember writing it in the MCN a few weeks ago, Rinaldi to Aruba, ? Because it was the general feeling that he would be on the factory bike alongside Scott Redding next year. Scott's obviously on a 2-year deal for 20 and 21. But then, of course, over the last few rounds, Chaz Davies has done a bit better, quite frankly. He had his win, didn't he, in Barcelona, and then another strong outing at Magny-Cours a couple of weeks ago. But we need to remember, Rinaldi is paid by Aruba anyway. They're a sort of cloud-based web hosting company in Italy, and they pay Rinaldi anyway. And he's basically on a factory bike as it is at the moment with the Go 11 team. Not quite as factory as the factory team, but more or less. So Rinaldi's going to be alongside Scott Redding next year. We've got to remember, Tris, Ducati's never had an Italian world champion, have they? Obviously, you haven't joined them yet, but they haven't had an Italian world champion in MotoGP or World Superbikes, and he's like the baby of the family. He's very much part of that team. He's been there for about 5 years now, since the stock days. So that's exciting. And then we have to wonder what's going to happen with Chaz Davies. It's been confirmed today he'll be leaving the team. There was one school of thought that they could run 3 bikes. Could Chaz go on the Go 11 bike? Could Chaz go on the Barney bike? We think Tito Rabat's going to be with Barney next year, coming over from MotoGP. Chaz has been linked with Honda as well. So there's still a few question marks there as to what will happen. We know Leon Haslam's been discussing with BSB teams, as you would. So he might stay with Honda. If he doesn't, will Davis come in? So that's another question mark. But I think it's great that Rinaldi's got the Ducati seat. Nothing against Chaz Davies. He's 31 times a winner. One of the best World Superbike riders of all time. And certainly one of the best never to win the World Championship yet. But Michael Ruben Rinaldi, exciting prospect, isn't he? And we saw how well he went earlier in the season. It's going to be great next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely say that he's deserved that seat. I mean, from his last run of results, that he's been extremely impressive. I mean, when he first came into Superbike, because he first came in with Aruba.it, didn't he? He was doing just the European rounds, I believe it was, with Aruba. And he just seemed a bit, he was there, but you saw how impressive he was in Stock Thou. And I personally expected a little bit more of him when he moved up into the Superbike class, and he's taken a couple of years now. He's stayed up with Ducati because, like you say, they're sort of he's sort of their little prodigy, isn't he? And he's obviously moved around. He's been with Barney, now he's with Go 11, and I find it quite interesting that he's going well now all of a sudden, as opposed to, I mean, when he first came in, and he's struggled a little bit. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that as well the last few days. So it's funny you say that, Tris, but. Yeah, I think he's obviously more experienced now, which sounds pretty obvious to say, but he is more experienced now. That first year when he was with the junior team, he only did the European rounds, if you remember. Yeah. So he didn't know Phillip Island and Thailand and Qatar and Laguna. Obviously, all of those have been off the calendar anyway this year, apart from Australia with the chaos, or they were off the calendar anyway. But also, for the first time this year, he's been on the same suspension as the Aruba bikes. Barney and Go 11 have had a bit of a switch. So I think that's been a major element, actually. And let's be honest, he's probably getting a bit more support from the main team as well. But I think the fact he's on that suspension has allowed him to share data. And Serafino Forti, the team manager of Aruba, actually said to me a few rounds, well, after the Tellwell round, when he went so well and challenged Jonathan Ray and obviously won a race that weekend, Chaz and Scott have actually been looking at Michael's data as well this year to improve their own setups. So it just goes to show how, intrinsic all these setups are and how they're all comparing each other's data. But I think he deserves it, and I think it's a good move. And Italian on a Ducati, he's still, only 24 years old. It makes sense, doesn't it? It does make sense. And Redding Rinaldi is an exciting lineup too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that one pans out as well, because obviously, I mean, this year, I think it's worked quite well in that you've got Chaz and Scott, who are both big guys on that bike. And obviously now Michael's not, I mean, he's not small, but he's not Scott's height. Scott's a very tall rider. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But like you say, they have been comparing data and stuff. And Scott's been a bit almost just sort of envious of Michael's weight in some of these scenarios with that tyre as well.
Yeah, that sort of confused me. I have to say that's the sort of part of the season it got away from Scott Redding, wasn't it? Because, no doubt about it, the Jonathan Ray side of the Kawasaki garage have been very, very impressed by what Scott Redding's done this year, and vice versa. Obviously, I think Scott Redding has got a real taste of just how good Jonathan Ray is. Not that he didn't know already, but he's now experienced it firsthand. And no doubt about it, in my opinion, that crash of Redding's at Motorland was induced by the fact he was having to push so hard to keep up with Jonathan Ray, and he lost the front, didn't he? But yeah, I was a bit confused that weekend because he seemed to get quite annoyed about the fact Rinaldi could do, the race distance on the full race, that is, with the X compound tyre. Then they made a strange decision, was the general feeling. It was a bit of a weird decision in Barcelona when they used the SC0 tyre in the 10-lap race. But we do need to remind ourselves, it is still Scott Redding's first season. Yes, he knows the bike. Doesn't know all the circuits. Magny-Cours was a new one, and we saw that, but he still managed to win there. But it is the first time he's ridden that bike with the World Superbike electronics. Weird season with the way everything's been. Okay, maybe we're backtracking a bit now. I'm not going to lie. Put hands up. I said I'd put a tenner. I didn't put the tenner on, but I would have put a tenner on Redding this year, to be honest. Looks like it's going to go Jonathan Ray's way again. And Jonathan would, I'm sure, say, I told you so. But Scott Redding's pushed him, hasn't he? He's pushed him. And it's the first time in 4 years it's coming down to the last round, the last race meeting of the year. So it bodes quite nice, I'd say, for next year when Redding does know the electronics. He does know all these circuits and the Aruba team, which he wasn't working with before. Who knows? It might be a different story, but we seem to say that every year, and Jonathan Ray still bounces back, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive ask to ask, a rider to come up into a world championship and go and win it. Of course, I mean, he has been in MotoGP and stuff like that, but whatever championship you go into, you're going to be learning. You're going to be learning the ways of the championship, like you say, the circuits, the electronics, everything is different. Of course, yeah, he's ridden the Ducati as well. So, I mean, and he's done really well. He's done extremely well. And beating someone like Jonathan Ray, who's, arguably could be said is one of the best World Superbike riders of all time.
For sure,
is a massive ask. And I remember when it was announced, I thought, well, he has a chance in the first year, but if he doesn't win it in the first year, he's going to have an even bigger chance in the second. And I think, like you say, next year, I know this year's been strange, but I think he will be able to move on to that next year. But another signing that has been recently come out is the World Super Sport champion, Andrea Locatelli's moved up to Yamaha, and that's a sort of an announcement that's come out of nowhere, really.
Yeah, that's obviously since Michael van der Mark officially confirmed he was going to BMW next year, and that was a bit of a questionable decision, you might say, as well at the time. We did say, is there something maybe he knows that we don't know? We know there's a new BMW coming. Quite how good it's going to be, we don't know, but even so, it's a new bike. They're going to have to develop the bike. They've been developing it across the course of this year, but it's not going to be easy, is it? That's what I'm trying to say. And he won't know the team, he won't know the bike. He's got to go through all that again that Scott Redding's gone through this year in a way. So that was van der Mark to BMW, and then it's left Pat to Yamaha with a vacancy. And they've deliberately not rushed it. I know that for a fact. They've deliberately just waited, taken it nice and calm. Why would they rush into that? They've had all this season to analyse people, and they've had a nice situation. It's a nice problem to have in a way. They were regretted van der Mark leaving, but they've had Locatelli, Loris Baz, Jonas Folger, Garrett Gerloff, Cameron Bobier. That's 5 already. All of which there's a strong argument for signing, isn't there? Some more than others, you could say. But we do know Andrea Dossoli is a big fan of Andrea Locatelli. He supports guys like Locatelli. He's obviously in the top Yamaha team in World Supersport. And it looks actually, Tris, at the moment, that it almost effectively might be a bit of a swap with Karakasuda going back down to the Evan Bros team in World Supersport. We'll see what happens there. Nothing confirmed yet. Locatelli should be interesting, I think. He's, again, young guy, quick Grand Prix racer, even though he didn't really show that in Moto2, because the level is so high, isn't it, in Moto2? As everyone says, it's probably the most competitive class of all of them in terms of the way the field is compacted together. It's going to be a learning year. He's alongside Toprak. It's going to be a new situation for Toprak now as well, really leading a team for the first time. I don't know what you think, but Toprak hasn't peaked yet, has he, in my opinion? He's still... We said it this year. We said he's going to be up there, but there's going to be a few more mistakes along the way, and sure enough, there have been. And sadly for Toprak, a mistake has ended up really costing him, because he was third in the championship for pretty much the whole year since we got going again. And he's 5th, 6th at the moment. I mean, he might not even be in the top 5 by the end of this weekend. Yeah.
He jumped onto it, and when he first jumped onto it, he was really quick, and then it's sort of just gone away from him a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think obviously the Phillip Island effect was part of it in Australia. Toprak's made some silly mistakes. The team have made a few silly mistakes. There was one in Australia when he ran out of fuel, if you remember, in the third race, the second long race on the Sunday. Portimao had a crash at the hairpin. He wasn't the only one, was he? But he did have a crash and threw more points away. Then the big one in Barcelona. It's got away from him, hasn't it? And they've had a bit of a struggle this year, really, in the end, which has become a bit of a feature of Yamaha over the last few years. Hopefully they can have a nice, solid, consistent season with Toprak next year. Got a great crew chief, though, Phil Marin. He's a top rider, as we know. We know what he can do, because he beat Jonathan Ray fair and square in a couple of races last year, didn't he? Especially Magny Corps, on a customer, let's remember, a customer Kawasaki. They've just got to get it together now and get it sorted out and come out the blocks, nice, fresh start next year and get it together. But they could have done more, I think, it's fair to say, for Yamaha. You know, Barcelona was a good weekend, but they lost a few points when they both almost ran into each other at the first corner. Magny Corps should have been better, really. I don't know, it's almost as though they've not been able to maximise what they've got underneath them, whereas others like Jonathan Ray not only do that, but they also limit the damage very well, don't they? Whereas Toprak, you know, he's paid the price for the Barcelona crash, because he was also still feeling the effects of that when we got to France. So it's messed up the season, really. It's a shame. It's a shame, because he deserved a top 3, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely so. And similarly to what we were saying about Locatelli moving up from Supersport, we're also having Lucas Myers is also moving up to World Superbike with Pachetti, I believe it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. So he'll be, staying with the same team, isn't it? Because he's there now. Yeah. So he'll step up there. We've also had a confirmation today, literally the last few hours early today, that Canan Ju will be joining the team in World Supersport. So he's already with the Turkish Federation, but that's an Oralak racing run bike at the the So Pachetti's going to be backing him next year. So there'll be Philip Ertel and Canan Ju there. So a Turkish rider on a Pachetti Kawasaki, probably with number 54 in World Supersport. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So that's going to be interesting. Can he follow in Sofoglu's footsteps? Probably can. And then, like you say, Myers is going to be on the Superbike. They've had a bit of a falling out with Xavi Forés, which is a shame, because it's a great team and it's a top rider. Hasn't worked for whatever reason. So Forés will, I reckon, be back in BSB next year, maybe World Endurance, but probably BSB, I think. And then, Myers did do an outing with Pedicini 4 years ago, and he led a rain-affected race at Assen.
Yeah.
Only for about 2 laps. It was one of the pit stop races, if you remember. But he's a good guy, Myers, and that's a good team as well. So I hope he can be up there next year. He's not going to be contending for victories, I don't think, immediately, but top 10. Let's say top 10 at first, and then see what he can do. Toprak won races on that bike. He'll be wanting to do the same. I think he'll want regular top 5s, you'd think, wouldn't you, at first?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been a lot of riders as well that have come up and have sort of, like Sofoglu being one of them, that have gone really well in Supersport, but never could quite make it work in Superbike.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, I feel like Myers is kind of one of those Supersport riders. Do you think he would be able to make it stick on a Superbike?
Well, you know more about this than me, obviously, in terms of the different riding styles, but they say Caricasulo is riding it quite heavily on the front end this year, which apparently is a bit more of a Supersport style, as you would know. And that's been his downfall by the looks of things this year. Gerloff's really beaten him, hasn't he, quite comprehensively over the course of the season. The shortened season, but nevertheless he has. So back to your question about Myers. I think he's quite adaptable. He was quick on a stock 1,000 bike, don't forget. He's gone well in World Endurance. He's a former Riders World Champion in the World Endurance Championship. I don't think he will have a problem. No, it's not going to be easy. Of course it's not, but it is the World Championship. It was never supposed to be easy, was it? But he won, he's won in Supersport. He's won in the European Stock 1,000 Championship. I like to think he'll go better than Caricasulo has so far this year. That's been a bit of a disappointment, a bit of a surprise, really. I think he'll be all right. I think Marsh is going to be quick.
Yeah, I think the interesting one with that as well is I would probably imagine that the Yamaha is probably an easier bike. The R1's an easier bike to jump onto after Supersport than the Kawasaki would be. But I mean, it's definitely. I mean, Myers is quite an aggressive rider, isn't he? I mean, you can see that in his braking style and in his style on the circuit. So, I mean, it could very well work for him, and it'll be interesting to see as well because of course we know that team can do well because they did well with Toprak last year. So that'll be an interesting one to see. But touching back onto Garrett Gerloff, he's had a really strong second half of the season, we'll call it.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, we've got to put all this into perspective and break it down this year. 2020's been weird, hasn't it? In so many ways, on and off the track. Obviously, it started in Australia and he was solid, but then he got wiped out by Sandro Cortese in the warm-up session on the Sunday morning. So concussion, had to be taken to hospital in Melbourne. That was Gerloff out of Phillip Island. So he only did one race. Then we're off for 5 months with the COVID chaos. Then we're back in Jerez, boiling temperatures. Some of the hottest motorcycle road races we've ever seen in a World Championship, whether it's Grand Prix or World Superbike. That wasn't easy to cope with. Then Portimao. Remember, these are all new circuits to Gerloff as well. He's never been at any of these European circuits before, apart from a little bit of testing in November and January. And then it started coming good, hasn't it? And, he said he liked the fast-flowing corners of Barcelona. And he's working very well with his crew chief, Les Pearson. Now, obviously, Les has worked in the past last year with Michael van der Mark. And prior to that, he's worked with people like Chris Walker. He's worked in the Grand Prix paddock. He's worked in the BSB paddock, World Superbike paddock, as we know. And they're getting on very well. And something Les has said to us over the last few weeks in particular is the way Garrett is feeding back information to him is making it so much better and so much easier. We talk about it a lot, don't we, with Jonathan Ray and Perariba and Spencer and Kanemoto in the day, Rossi and Burgess. They just click, don't they, like that? Yeah. And so they sort of already know there's like a telepathic thing going on when they get off the bike and walk in the garage. Les can already be one step ahead because he sort of knows from Gerloff's mannerisms, and he's very quick in his first few words of what he wants with the bike. And that's another thing, obviously, going back to what we said before in adapting to the World Championship regulations. Yes, he's raced the Yamaha Superbike in Moto America. Yep. Different tyres, though, slightly different electronics, different circuits. And I think it's just understanding, what the type. When I first spoke, Tris, with Gerloff at the test in November at Aragon, he'd never ridden a European circuit ever before, November last year, ever. And I remember him saying, this Pirelli tyre is amazing, it's uncrashable. Obviously, the very next day, he crashed it at the same corner, turn two. But it's all about learning, isn't it? And confidence and building all this up. And I think another thing we shouldn't overlook as well is the change in lifestyle. People said this a lot about Ayrton Senna when he came over as a Formula 3 driver in Britain. He'd come from a hot Brazilian climate to the cold Norfolk climate, which is where he lived. Yep. And Gerloff's had to do a similar thing. You know, the temperatures in Texas, where he's from, generally across the year, I looked it up. I think it was something like 27.5 or 28 degrees Celsius average temperature with a load of humidity. So he's come over from that to Europe. And yes, we've had a hot summer in Spain, Portugal, but generally speaking, the lifestyle is completely different. Yep. He's based in Spain at the moment, temporarily, but he's in Spain. So he's a fluent Spanish speaker. But, you know, we've had the lockdown to contend with as well. He's had all these things going on. I think he's done a pretty good job when you put all that together. And I think it's great that he's staying with GRT next year. Not quite so much pressure as if he'd been in the Pata team. Don't forget there's going to be a lot of circuits if we get the full calendar next year, which I don't think we will. But if we do, he's got to learn some of those tracks that we haven't been to this year. You know, we haven't even been to Germany. We were supposed to go to Oschersleben this year, and we didn't even get there. So there's going to be, whatever happens with the calendar, I imagine there's going to be a couple of tracks he won't know. So I think staying there with Les Pearson, GRT is perfect, actually. And I think he'll probably do better off, in my opinion, staying where he is for one more year than jumping straight up onto the Pata bike and having, you know, the powers that be at Yamaha on his shoulder, looking over his shoulder the whole time, putting the pressure on. I think he's done well. And Magny Corey had another great weekend, didn't he? They were very harsh, I thought, the BMW guys. It was a racing incident. It was wet. I completely get Laverty and Sykes' anger, but it was deemed a racing incident by the stewards. It doesn't mean that it was a racing incident. I thought it was. I don't know what you guys thought. But they were quite harsh on him, and I'm sure that he took it a bit easier on the Sunday to avoid getting into any scrapes again. Let's not forget, he was challenging for the win on Saturday. Yeah. When he crashed, he was in third place, and he was pushing Ray and Loris Baz for the win of that race. And that's amazing. He'd never been to Magny-Cours before.
Yeah, absolutely so, and I agree with you. I do think that they were a bit harsh on him with that foot, or with that move. For anyone that didn't see it, he was sort of just went straight up the inside at the first corner. Yeah, very slightly tagged Sykes, and that sent him down, and then his bike then curtailed and took out Laverty. Yeah. I think the BMW guys as well, they were probably very disappointed that both their bikes went down at the same time at the first corner, which obviously is a disaster for that team. And you know, they both had good qualifying positions as well. I believe they were both on the front row, weren't they? Yeah. So you know, that was not the end of the race they wanted at all. Laverty said he was really angry about it, didn't he? He said it was unforgivable from Gerloff, I think was the words he used.
And Sykes made a very public hand gesture on live TV as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
I mean, the thing is, if you're in Gerloff's situation, he was on the inside of turn one, wasn't he? So he's cranked over. He's got Jonathan Ray on his right. All of a sudden, you know, Ray ducks ahead, and there's a BMW there. And he said, I felt some pressure on my right boot. Gerloff himself said, and if you watch the replay, it's true, that he was up on the inside curb. He couldn't have been any more over to the left. And it was the slightest of contact, but there was a touch. And obviously it was wet, so Sykes was down. And it was just a disaster, wasn't it, for BMW that it wiped out someone else. And it happened to be the other BMW. And it was a nightmare because there'd been 1 and 2 on the grid. That hadn't happened before. And then they're down. I think it was 8 seconds after the starting lights went out. They were both down. Bikes flying through the air, smashed to pieces. I mean, it was a spectacular TV shot, wasn't it? But disaster for BMW. And it didn't really get any better, did it? Because the Sunday wasn't much better either. I suppose to give them the benefit of the doubt, those bikes had been repaired and, you know, there's probably more problems as a result of the crashes. But yeah, I don't actually think Gerloff deep down, I've got to be careful how I word this, I don't think he'll care. And I don't mean he doesn't, he sympathised with BMW. He certainly didn't mean to do it. He did feel sorry for the fact they've both gone down. But deep down, I don't think he's going to be losing any sleep over it. A bit like when Marquez hit Lorenzo at the last corner in Jerez. He said all the right things on the TV, but they don't care really. There was a door open and he passed him, and I think the same thing happened with Gerloff. He's not going to back out of it, is he? And to be fair, he did get through. There was a touch, it's a shame. If it was dry, it probably wouldn't have resulted in a crash. That's why the BMW guys were angry, but I don't know, racing incident, there's always going to be somebody who's not happy about it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and every rider's done it. I mean, I know I've done it myself. I've taken people out. I've been taken out. And it's something that happens.
Thundersport at Alton Park, I seem to remember.
Oh, have you seen that? Yeah, I've managed to take out 2 riders in one move.
Snetterton this year.
That wasn't my fault.
No, you're just lucky it wasn't actually on camera, that's all.
It's not.
Learning weekend and all that.
Yeah, something like that.
So, yes, Jay King, Greg, has been diligently waiting. I'm told that he does have an amazing question for you. No pressure then, Jay.
I am a bit nervous here.
I think he's probably more nervous anyway, but go ahead, Jay, go on.
Nice to speak to you, Greg.
Hi, Jay.
Just touching on it, really, we've had quite a few of the British World Superbike lads now who have been in the championship quite a while now, like your Sykes, and obviously we know Davis could be leaving the championship now, and Haslam could be. Are there like any British riders you think maybe it's time for them, like maybe to move up to the World Superbike Championship? We know Tommy's obviously rode for the Ducati team. Was it the Barney team he rode for a few times last year? Glenn Irwin has made it public that he would like to move up to World Superbikes. Also, I think Brad and Kyle would be maybe good suits for the future in World Superbikes.
Jay, you missed out Tristan Finocchiaro there. No, jokes aside, that it's a good question because, sorry, Tris, the last few years, I know there was one occasion when the organisers actually blocked British riders coming into the World Superbike Championship. This was 2015.
Because there were too many.
Yeah, because there were too many, which obviously is a sort of backhanded compliment in a way, I suppose you could say, to the British Superbike Championship. You know, we do have, by some margin, don't we, the best national domestic Superbike series in the world. There's no doubt about it. You know, Moto America has some decent racing, but it's been dominated by one man this year. Australia has a really competitive championship. Then you've got one in Spain, one in France, but Britain is, you know, far and away above the rest, isn't it? I think all the guys you just said, Bradley Ray, you have to feel sorry for Bradley Ray this year because the general feeling is he would have done a few wild cards with BMW. Places like Donington, I don't know whether they were going to do one in Germany, but certainly Donington would have been a wild card. And because of the mess we've had with COVID, he's not been able to do that, has he? It's a shame because it would have been really exciting to see what he could have done there. So I think that was certainly the thinking with Brad Ray and the link with BMW. You know, hope you would obviously expect he could then move up into the World Championship. I think, to be honest with you, any one of the riders you mentioned now, you've just mentioned, has a chance. Tommy Bridewell, a little bird tells me, will not be with the Oxford Products team in BSB next year because I know they're chatting with other riders. So putting two and two together, unless they're running two bikes, you would imagine he won't be there next year. And Tommy said himself, hasn't he, quite publicly before, I want to be in the World Championship. So to be honest with you, I don't know because there's no rumours at this point, no strong rumours as to any current BSB riders coming in next year. But I think people like Ray, Bridewell's probably a good bet. But a bit like being a young Spaniard in something like Supersport 300 or Moto 3, there's so many of them at the moment, aren't there? And that's nothing against the Brits, but you know, if you're, let's say you're Top Rack from a sponsor point of view or a manufacturer point of view, you got a young Turk coming up who's quick and he can beat Jonathan Ray on his day. And, you know, it's different, isn't it? That's the sort of problem some of these Spaniards have in Supersport 300. There are so many upcoming Spaniards in the CEV, Junior Supersport, and Moto 3 already. That is the one thing, ironically, against the Brits at the moment because the British Championship is so strong. We'll have to just wait and see. But now you've mentioned Bridewell, it does make you think he'll have a decent chance next year. But quite what will be on, I don't know. It seems like the Barney team are going to potentially go with Tito Rabat. They need a rider who brings money because the Barney team struggled this year with the whole COVID thing. A lot of sponsors are putting out or not putting in as much as they did before. And it's affecting the small.
Rabat's well known for paying for his rides.
Exactly, for their jewellery and all the rest of it. See some Rabat. I think Julian Ryder said it recently, that Rabat typeface you see everywhere in Barcelona might be on a Barney Ducati next year. It's a shame in a way that it is about money, but having said that, it always has been. It always has been. Bikes, cars, whatever. There's always been a rich or well-backed guy or girl who's able to grab a ride for that reason.
Yeah. Cheers, Greg.
Cheers, Jay.
Well, that's an interesting, I'm going to say, nugget of information that you imparted regarding Tommy Bridewell. I had suspected as much, but you'd said that someone had told you, which is more than what someone had not told us. But
basically, can't drop anyone in it, obviously. But yeah, the person who told me is a rider who's talking to that team for next year. So if they've been contacted by that team, then yeah, it doesn't mean Bridewell's leaving, does it? But you'd imagine he is. We'll see. He might be staying in BSB with another team. I genuinely don't know. But as Jay said before, he certainly talked about World Superbikes, hasn't he?
That might be the place for him to go and actually, like say, finally put a fantastic international season together for him. Who knows? But that is definitely a line of investigation we will continue to chase up on Tommy Bridewell. I think there's already a tweet circulating on the internet asking something along the lines of, where is Tommy Bridewell going in 2021?
I like the way you looked up there. Is the tweet just coming over the top of your house now?
Anyway, but it's been a fantastic pleasure to have you on the show again with another different set of presenters. It seems like every time you're on talking to someone else, they always end up leaving. Well, because they do usually end up. Every presenter on this show, apart from me, is gone off to work for Dorna.
I don't know whether it's the effect you're having on them, Lester, or whether it's the effect I'm having as a guest. Yeah, I know. It seems like to work for Dorna now, you have to have worked as a blogger beforehand. So yeah,
much to the annoyance of professionally trained journalists who've been around various paddocks for many years, etc.
But no names, obviously.
No. Anyway, moving on. Thank you very much once again, Greg, for coming on tonight's Superbike show. I'll call it a return of the show, just because we've returned, I suppose. But for how long? Just like COVID, who knows?
Good luck with it.
Yeah, and good luck with the call in the final few races in World Superbikes. Just tell us then when we can tune in and hear your stuff. And you're still doing the podcast as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I always get this mixed up. You can tune in from 9:45 on Saturday and Sunday, Eurosport 2 and the Eurosport app, which has changed name a few times. It was Eurosport Player, then we had to say Eurosport.com. It's now the Eurosport app. So, watch out for that if you're anyone watching online. And obviously Friday free practice as well. Jules and I will be live. The podcast you asked, didn't you? Yeah, we'll be recording that on Sunday night. So if anyone's got any questions, send them in to us. I've actually taken a bit of a Twitter break at the moment as a bit of a social experiment, so send them into Julian Ryder instead.
I'm sure he'd love
we'll get that done on. And then we've got to think of a few podcast ideas for the off season because, we're going to do. I think we've done 91 of them now, so I'm thinking of doing, spice it up a bit for number 100. I'm not sure whether that's going to fall the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Probably 21 now. But yeah, if anyone's got any ideas as to special guests, let us know. Or what colour should people dye their hair? Questions like that.
Yeah, well, someone said I'm an ash blonde, so I don't know.
Platinum all the way. That's Matt Roberts.
Silver fox and all that sort of stuff. I think it's only the riders who you can still get away with colouring their hair in ludicrous colours.
But I don't know. Are you referring to anyone in particular, or?
Yeah, Jay and Tristan.
Who would have known?
But anyway,
I never noticed.
But yeah, once again, thank you. Anyway, I'm waffling, but thank you for coming on the show, and we will try our best to drag you back on with another set of presenters at some point in the future. Good luck with the rest of the championship, and if we don't speak again for next season as well, and the winter season, and well, I'm sure we'll see you around doing loads of things. Greg Haines on the Superbike show. Thank you very much, Greg. This is Motorsport Radio. We are still very much live, and we can also go. I've just been trying to have a quick refresh of some comments that are coming in. Either there are no comments coming in, or my browser's stuck. I'll go with that. That's what I'll say. The browser is definitely stuck. So there you go. But Greg Haines, that was I think he said. Personally, Tristan, I think he revealed a little bit more than what he wanted to there, especially about some riders in BSB.
Well, that makes it very interesting for us as well and our viewership.
It's not like we love gossip or anything.
No, that's definitely not why we're here.
No, I mean, but seriously though, Jay, where is Tommy Bridewell going?
You tell me. I didn't know until you just said that. He said that then, so that was news to me as well.
Well, yeah, I sat up. I was like, "What?" I mean, we know that.
I think you need to thank me there for getting that bit of gossip, even though I didn't mean to.
Well, yeah, thank you, because you kept, I know you kept that question under your hat for a long time, and you got it out, and it was a good question. It led to a good answer. So he's good like that. He's Greg. So thank you very much for that, and also to our other guest this evening, to Chrissy Rouse as well, for coming on and battling some dodgy 4G, as have we as well. But I think we can edit that out. No one will notice. See, that's the thing with live shows versus podcasts. You see, you can edit out all the crap and the nonsense that no one ever knows. You see, but when you go live, everyone, if you get one dodgy signal, everyone's like, "Oh, this show shit," and then it's like, yeah. Anyway, but that's hey ho. But yeah, there we go. Who should we get on the show next week? I know, Tommy Bridewell.
He's probably not going to be my best mate now, is he?
I don't know, but maybe we could talk about his nephew, Freddie Bridewell, who has made his debut this year, in the Fab Racing Minibikes British Championship, hasn't he, Tristan?
He has. It's been brilliant to see. Freddie, the nephew of Tommy, was racing. Pretty sure he picked up some podiums as well in his first year. I believe only 6 or 7 years old, making his debut in racing, and that's brilliant to see. I think we also had Josh Day's son as well, Harrison Day, that was in there, and Fab Racing again proving to be the breeding ground for all riders of the future.
Absolutely it is, and to our knowledge, it will certainly continue into 2021 as the official partner series to the BSB, and also remain on Dorna's road to MotoGP, and it is still the best championship if you are a young rider looking to start your career in motorcycle racing, to get on that first step, because most of the British Talent Cup field are all Fab or former Fab riders, and that's another topic that we can nicely move on to, as though like we planned it that way, because we did. The British Talent Cup, the Honda British Talent Cup, concludes this weekend, with it being quite tight at the top in the championship, and there was lots of action and drama happening last time out at Donington, with this highlights of race 2 going on. I think race 2, for those who, I think this was race 2, I can't remember now, but there was a lot of slipstream going on at the Donington round, and Casey O'Gorman not having it his own way, certainly at times during the weekend, and there was a lot of battling and action. We're just watching some of it, and a first podium in BTC by Evan Belford as well. Fantastic result for him. He's always been there or thereabouts, just underneath the podium positions. But yeah, he managed to actually get himself onto the podium by just waiting back, hanging back, whilst Charlie Farrer, Casey O'Gorman, Franco Bourne, Eddie O'Shea, who I think still leads the championship from memory. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me here, but amazing to think that he's leading the championship now. He's not won a race yet. So that's pretty incredible, isn't it, Jay?
Yeah, I think that will annoy him, because even if he did win the championship, I think he'd be a bit frustrated if he did it without winning a race. He's very competitive, Eddie, and if you saw him at the end of the first race with Harvey, which is a very close finish, he was devastated that he came second.
Yeah, I did, and I did interview him at the end of that race, and well, you can't really tell when Eddie O'Shea, or maybe he doesn't show it to the media, but he's such a nice, likeable young lad, is Eddie O'Shea, that if he is really annoyed or frustrated, he certainly doesn't let it show, because he
did when he went into the Parc Fermé.
Did he? What did he?
Yes, it was you could just tell he was frustrated. He was crouching down on the floor, like holding his head in his hands, like, oh, I should have won that one. So, but it was still a great performance. He wouldn't have had a lot of experience in the wet on that bike, so he shouldn't get too down with himself.
As we watch O'Shea getting just on some of the highlights from the last race at Donington Park, lots of lunges down at the Melbourne Loop, Evan Belford going around the outside of of O'Shea. And final corner action, Charlie Farrer leading into the final corner. Evan Belford almost taking the lead with O'Shea coming home further back, and O'Gorman not quite managing to do it. And a lot of people very surprised that his the amount of pace that he exhibited, but he can probably explain a little bit why, because I chatted with him just after the race. I talked to all of the podium, in fact, starting with the winner of race number 2 at Donington Park, Charlie Farrer.
Yeah, it was really tight. I'm over the moon to come out on top. I was wondering, the last part of the race, I was thinking, should I go for it? Should I take the points? And I felt I was quite a bit stronger in a few sectors, so in the end I decided to go for it, and it paid off, so I'm over the moon. Coming into the last lap, I knew where I was stronger. Certainly through Craner and up the bank, I was carrying much more speed. So I lined the first 2 up, and then I got Casey on the brakes coming into the S's, so made it stick and it's paid off. I just want to say a massive thanks to my team, my mechanic Keith Taylor, Richard Mortimer, just for keeping the bike absolutely perfect every time I've went out on it this year.
Over the moon, it's great, yeah. Well, the start was a bit difficult. I didn't get a good lap in the last race, so start from 8th. Started working my way up, got into about 4th on first lap, and then I knew from there, like, I've just got to push to the end and, like, hopefully get a podium.
It was a good race, and we went too short on the gearing, so at the end of the straight they'd all close up on me, and then on the last lap it revved out earlier and they came past me. But it was a good weekend because I actually finished both races.
Casey O'Gorman explaining exactly what happened with his bike. It says blaming his mechanics, basically. He said they went short on the gears, and of course they all piled up on him. Maybe that was the case, but well, whatever it was, anyway, it made for a entertaining race, and once again, just going to show that all of the podium. In fact, I think from memory, I don't know if there has been a non-Fab rider on a British Talent Cup podium this season. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Was Franco born Fab rider?
Yeah, he was.
I think he was, yeah.
Yeah, definitely was. He was in 2016, anyway, when I was there. Not as a rider, Jesus. No, but yeah, Franco Bourne, Casey O'Gorman, and most of these guys do come back to Fab Racing just to have a laugh in classes like the Extreme 200s, which is great for people like you, Jay, to get involved with and mix it up, because does it make you feel young again, thinking that maybe you can still be mixing it, with the Talent Cup guys, maybe?
It's nice to know that maybe these guys one day will make it big, and I can say that
definitely
I
a few
used to race against them and beat them now and again. So yeah, it is good. It is. I've raced against Scott and obviously Brad and Charlie before, so it's good to say that you've been out on track with them.
Absolutely, Tristan. Who's leading on from what you just said there, Jay, who would you say had been the best person or you'd raced against in your career so far?
That's a tough question. Can I say myself?
No, that's a little egotistical.
No, I wouldn't even believe it if I said it. Honestly,
who in years gone by, like Jay, would you look back and think, I raced against him, I beat him, I stood him up into the last corner?
Rory Skinner for sure. I raced against him in Fab and in Super Teams, and he's one of those annoying riders that can just jump on a bike and be quick on it, and he's just constantly quick whatever he does. And I mean, it's shown. I mean, he's won a good few championships. He went through Fab, won championships there. Now obviously British Super Sport champion, went out to World Championships, and then had a bit of fun out there as well. And I would definitely say, I mean, riding alongside him in some of the races, I mean, I don't think I ever beat him. I think the closest I got to him was just battling with him for a podium. But he was just he was an absolute standout for me.
Interesting. Okay, and you've already named you've already name dropped a few of your previous competitors as well, Jay, like Scott Redding, but and you're still very much riding and racing with these people week in, week out as well. So that's always good to see. My microphone's new studio here. I mean, I'm still getting used to the nuances of cheap equipment. Anyway, this is the Superbike Show. It is Motorsport Radio. My name's Lester. Tristan Finocchiaro and Jay King are here as well. Thank you very much for tuning in. Just mentioning just something in my mind about what you just said, going back and linking it to something Greg Haines mentioned. You may have noticed that he dropped a little bit of a bombshell and suggested that Tommy Bridewell might be leaving the team. Probably won't, but might be, could be. That was the inference that he dropped within that bombshell, I would say. And you said that Rory Skinner deserves a ride in BSB.
Yeah. It would be a good choice, wouldn't it? It'd be on a top bike.
That would be very interesting to see, wouldn't it? I mean, I don't think Rory would ever have... he hasn't ever ridden a V4, so that would definitely be interesting. So learning a superbike and then learning that configuration as well would be a really interesting mix. You'd like to think, considering what he's done for Yamaha this year, that he'd be rewarded by Yamaha, and he'd probably... I think if he did move up, it would be most likely that he moves up to a Yamaha team, like we saw with Kennedy last year.
That would be the logical way to think, but sometimes it's not always available.
You never know.
You never know. The question, I suppose, is there to be asked. If it was to be or transpire that Tommy Bridewell is no longer in the team, or the team running a second BSB rider, who might it be? Jay, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Repeat the question again then. I was daydreaming.
Oh, fantastic. It's all right. Everyone zones out when I talk. So if... the Oxford Ducati products Ducati, whatever they're called. Yeah. Who will be riding with that team next year, either alongside or replacing Tommy Bridewell?
If you look at the Rapido's team, like in history, they've gone for more of experienced riders. So they had Hopkins before. Obviously, Tommy Bridewell had a lot of experience. So obviously, we don't know what the PBM rider's going to do next year. So maybe one of them might drop down. Maybe Chrissy and Idden could go on the bike. I can't see Josh Brooks leaving that team again. So yeah, maybe Chrissy and Idden. And I know Paul Bird does like a youngster on his bike. So maybe we could see someone else new on that one again. You never know.
Interesting. Did I ask you already, Tristan? Maybe I just did. I think I did.
I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. Peter Hickman could have it, couldn't he?
Yeah.
He's announced something, but he hasn't announced where he's going.
Yeah, but I think we've already established that it might be OMG.
Well, you never know, though, do you? Like you said,
it might be OMG.
Probably OMG. All right, I'll stop before you say too much. Yeah,
I genuinely don't know.
It's a tough one. It is a tough one. It could be Idden moving across.
Why would he do that though if he's not forced to?
I think he would only leave if like someone replaced him at PBM. For some reason I could see Kyle ride on a Ducati. I really could.
Be interesting. You'd think Suzuki would keep him though, wouldn't you?
I can't imagine Kyle Ride's been, because his performances have been really good this year, Kyle Ride's, but
the question is, would you let Kyle Ride go from your team? I mean, if you had Kyle Ride in your team, would you let Kyle Ride go? I wouldn't.
I was thinking more that Kyle Ride wouldn't be happy because the bike has let him down quite a lot this season. Mechanicals and that. It's often...
But he's also had a lot of success as well, though. Well, some success. Maybe not as much as he wants, but...
I think if the bike had stuck in with him a bit more, he could be a championship contender this season.
Very interesting. I'm just conscious of time because it's coming up to 2 hours almost since, not quite, but since we started the show, and we've not even talked about MotoGP yet. Goodness gracious. All Moto 2. Almost 03. So should we do that now? I think we should. So yes. Sure. And for the first time in a long time, I actually watched MotoGP live. I bit the bullet, and I've been busy.
It was a weird race.
Yes, but I wouldn't say overshadowed, but maybe certainly. Yeah, I'm talking about Jake Dixon in the Moto2 race, but yeah, that was a shame for him, wasn't it?
It was like almost too good to be true, weren't it, really, to have two Brits coming first and second. And there was at one point where it looked like we might not get neither, because Alex and Sam? I always get muddled up. One of the Lowe's twins nearly lost the front, didn't he? Sam, is it? And he completely locked the front up, and that's the only sort of save you see Marquez do. So he did really well to save that. And then obviously Jake just pushed a little too hard to keep him behind him and lost the front going into the last corner. So yeah, it was really impressive for Sam to get a win, because it's been a real long time since he last had a Moto2 win. But I think we all felt a bit gutted for Jake that he couldn't finish the job off.
And did you see how distraught he was as well afterwards?
He was crestfallen.
I could understand how he felt. I've never raced at that level, never will, but it must be destroying when you're leading a GP race with I think he had 5 laps to go, and he just pushed that little bit too hard. I think he just hit a slight bit of a damp patch because the track still wasn't perfect, and just lost the front. Easy mistake to make.
Yeah, absolutely, and you could see how hard he's worked for this as well. I mean, because obviously all of last year with that team on the KTM, and now this year he's got a good proper chance. And we've seen him improving his results. He's been battling top 5, top 6, and all that work he's put in is you don't want to say thrown away. It was a tiny mistake.
Just hopefully that he can just not kind of sit on it too much and kind of say to himself that, look, I've done it and I can do it again. And it'd be really nice to see him. Hopefully he gets a podium for the end of the season. That'd be really good, because he deserves it, I think.
Certainly interesting. And a question as well regarding the future as well, as it is kind of, it's not quite the end of the season, but domestically it is. It's the sort of time of the year where we're looking ahead to 2021, if they will even, I don't know if we'll all be alive by then, I don't know, but let's presume that we will be, and that everything will be going ahead as we want it to. Who would be, in GP anyway, who would be the next British GP rider with Crutchlow pretty much a conclusion now that he might be leaving, that he probably will go from GP now? I think that's the general consensus. But yeah, talking about the future, who will be, and who should be, Tristan, start with you, the next British Grand Prix rider?
Like I say, I think it's safe to say that Crutchlow's coming towards the end of it. I think I would go for Jake Dixon, because he's now had that time out in World Championship level, and he's getting to learn the track, getting to learn how the paddock works, and he'd probably be your best bet to move up. I think he still needs at least one more year in Moto2 before he's ready to move on to MotoGP. He's only just now finding his feet in it, and the biggest mistake he can make is to rush it. But I do think if we are going to have anyone next, it's going to be him. But that does. Yeah, there's not many names that could do it, in all honesty. What about Mr. Finocchiaro? Yeah, I'm moving up to MotoGP next year. I just haven't told anyone yet. Well, I mean, maybe just, I don't know, we can probably get you on the website at least doing the race reports for fun. That's as close as I'll get. No. Not yet, anyway. But Jay, your opinions on who the next GP rider would be or should be, or who do you fancy in that in the top level?
I agree with Tristan. I think it should be Jake as well. But like you said, maybe another full year in Moto2 to maybe try and compete for the championship, try and get a bit of consistency. Not that he hasn't had consistency this year. He did have that breakdown when he was in a good position as well, which wasn't his fault. I'd love to see Scott go back, but I just don't think that's ever going to happen. I think he's had his time there. I don't think he's going to get his chance. I'd also like to see Johnny Ray have his chance in World Superbikes, but once again, unless Kawasaki suddenly got a MotoGP bike built, I can't see that ever happening either.
Well, I mean, why would... I don't know. I might think that people like Johnny Ray and Redding might opt to stay in World Superbikes and be competitive versus risking going to Grand Prix. And
I think they would only go to Grand Prix now if they got like a factory Ducati or a factory Yamaha ride, because obviously Scott's been in the privateer teams before, so he knows what it's all about. Even though I do think the Pramac bike is a lot better bike now than what it was when Scott was riding it. So, I think unless they got a mega offer, I can't see anything changing for them two now. Yeah,
and Ray has pretty much said, if he hasn't definitely said, that would be the only way he would go to GP in a front-running on a front-running bike in a championship challenging team, and that's very unlikely for someone to just dive in straight at the top. But you never know. You never know. Let us know your thoughts. The Superbike show continues. Yeah, it's a weird one to think about. We're back again next week on the Tuesday, because I'm extremely busy next week. Very busy.
It's going to be a good show next week to talk about who wins that British Championship.
Yes, we've got all the fallout from that. We will try and stuff the show full of interviews and grab as many riders on the show. Obviously, the ones that are feeling rather jubilant and happy with themselves are more likely to come on the show rather than the ones that, I don't know, maybe we've had people on the show who just want to get things off their chest, haven't we?
We'll be talking about Tristan's maiden Stock 600 win, I think.
Oh, absolutely so. I mean, you never know.
Yes, well, anyway, that we'll put that on the maybe pile. But I mean, points this year. You know, they make prizes and learning year and all that. And you must have already thought though, Tristan, what you want to do next year, budget depending.
Oh, if anything, I'll be staying in Stock 600. That's a fact. Whatever I'm doing next year, it will be in Super Stock 600. Just what team is yet to be decided.
Ooh, interesting. Maybe a motorsport media team. No, I can't afford that.
Oh, you've committed to it now.
No, it'd be run on shoestring unicorn slices, shoestring budgets, and been there, still doing it. But yeah, I don't know, but maybe you'd be the next Ben Luxton.
Wow, I wouldn't mind at all.
Indeed. It is the Superbike show. Nice way to wrap up, I think, for the first show back, and the hopefully not the last show of 2020. But you never know what happens. So Donna could come knocking on your door, Tristan, and be like, "Hey, up, son, we heard you got a journalism degree. Get over here. We need you in Spain." People have gone over with much less. Anyway, moving on. Next week we'll be back live on Tuesday night, hopefully. Mostly because I'm back at Brands again the following week doing some car racing live streaming, and that should be interesting. So that's why. And I'm doing some more other stuff you don't need to know about me. But anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. You can listen again, download a copy of this show if you want. If you missed any of it, I'll be re-releasing the Chrissy Rouse interview, clipping out all the bad internet bits, and also Greg Haines as well. And a little clip of that moment where he announces the departure of Tommy Bridewell but doesn't, and realises what he said and tries to walk it back. And that might find its way onto the internet, I think. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in and wasting a couple of hours with us. Thank you very much, Tristan, for also doing the same, and Jay King making your Superbike show debut. How have you found it?
Thank you for having me on. Hopefully I ain't embarrassed myself too much. I'm glad I got you a bit of a scoop on the Tommy Bridewell story.
Fair enough. We'll take that in compensation for that hair. I mean,
You're the one who's the odd one out, Lester.
Yes.
Very true.
Because anyway. I'm feeling, anyway. So self-conscious right now.
Look forward to seeing you at the weekend.
Yes, loads of people... I was going to say loads of people are going to Brands, but of course they're not.
No.
But I may
Just
coincidentally
us people working.
bump into lots of people. I should probably shut up now. Nobody's going to Brands. There's going to be no trophy presentations. Nothing's happening. We're just going to go there, stay distant, stay stony-faced, enjoy some racing, and then go home. Thank you. This has been the Superbike Show. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll go and do some other stuff now and get ready for Brands this weekend. Who's going to win it? Find out by tuning in live on Motorsport Radio, live BSB radio coverage. It's right here.
This is Motorsport Radio.